Welcoming Dr. Ellie Zarabian, host of From Chaos to Connection, Growing from Pain Toward Community. Are you ready to make the most of your challenges while moving ahead with your dreams? Do you want your spiritual growth to be part of your healing while living your life with purpose? On Chaos to Connection, you will find resources to transform your difficulties into connections with others. Change is achievable. Dr. Ellie helps you make change both within and in the world. Learn to heal past traumas, become more self-assured, and take action in the world. No matter your spiritual background or cultural heritage, we will work together to transform pain and trauma to community and well-being. You can make this world a better place, starting with yourself. From Chaos to Connection starts now.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Ellie Zarabian, and this is my show From Chaos to Connection. If you're interested in the topic of personal growth and building better relationships at home and in the world, then you're definitely in the right place. In my last two shows, I talked about building better relationships at home and in the workplace. Today, I'd like to talk to you about building better relationships with people out in the community. Like the last two shows, I will leave some room at the end of the program in case you want to call or text me with a question or just to call and say hi and hello. Again, I feel that with all that's going on in the world today, it's crucial that we create a safe space where we can come together collectively as a community and connect in a caring and responsible way. After all, my intention for creating these podcasts is to help people communicate more effectively and learn new skills and tools that will foster an atmosphere of tolerance and even acceptance. If you remember, in my previous talks, I had said that in my work over the decades as an educator and a relationship coach, I have noticed that people are not born knowing how to have healthy, caring, and loving relationships. For many of us, learning how to have good relationships, both inside and outside the home, takes work, practice, and lots of patience. So I like to offer this space as a place where you can come, learn, and practice these skills with me and with each other more openly and freely. After all, the topic of today is building better relationships with people in the community. So why not start right here? It seems that these days we are a lot quicker to judge, blame, and engage in destructive or hostile behavior than we are in reaching out in friendship and with goodwill. Sadly, with all that's going on in the world and with our planet, things don't seem to be moving in a better direction anytime soon either. But as an eternal optimist, I believe that we can change that. I think we have the potential to do so much better with each other and with the world. If there's a will, there's always a way. But to begin that process, it takes courage and willingness. All good things in life are worth trying hard for. And if building a more caring and sustainable global community is a good thing, then I think you will agree with me that it's worth the trouble and even the risk. Well, I don't think that we're going to solve all of our collective troubles in this 1.5 hour session, but I do think that we can utilize this space to begin the process and build from here. I feel that so much of the problems people seem to be harboring against each other stems from an inability to communicate well and effectively. Everyone has so much to say, but not many have the ear to listen. A big part of becoming a good communicator is actually becoming a good listener first. Sadly, I have found that most people have lost this skill or never developed it from the beginning. We're often too busy thinking about what we want to say or proving ourselves right or making the other person wrong versus really listening and hearing what the other has to say. Just because we listen well to someone, it does not mean that we agree with them. Active listening is just a productive way to let the other person know that you're really taking in and absorbing what they're saying. Unfortunately, we seem to have lost this skill set because many people tend to think that good listening is synonymous with agreeing, and that's just not true. No doubt, I'm guilty of that myself. Even though I have been in this profession for decades, I still find myself at times losing my grip or my ability to really stay focused and present when listening to someone else, especially if I disagree with them. That's because active listening is a lifelong process. It's not something that you learn overnight and then you're fixed. Given that most of us did not grow up learning these skills from childhood, as adults, we have an uphill battle. But the good news is that the brain is very versatile, and with some willingness and practice, we can go very far in life. That's why I'm committed to these podcasts. I believe if people are given the right training and opportunity, so much good can come about. So, what is the problem? Barring mental illness, why do so many people have conflict with each other in the world? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I'm sure we all want to know the magic answer to that. If only we knew what the exact problem is, then we could fix it, right? Well, that's what psychologists attempt to do much of their professional life. They want to figure out and understand what are the underlying causes of conflict and how do you remedy these problems. To be honest with you, when I sat down this past week to prepare for this talk, I found myself feeling quite stuck. I mean, after all, as you know, I was born into conflict. I have studied conflict for decades. I have counseled and taught on this topic for years. But when I sat down to write about it for today's show, I found myself feeling stuck. At first, I pushed myself to write. Normally, I don't have any difficulty coming up with content for what I want to teach or talk about. But for some reason, this time it wasn't coming through as easily. So rather than fighting it, I decided to look into it and take my own advice about not pushing when something is not flowing, and instead to delve into the stuckness and see what it's all about. Well, when I got quiet and reflected on my feelings and thoughts of being stuck, I realized it's because I'm just really tired. I have been dealing with this topic of conflict my whole life in one form or another. And I found myself sitting at the edge of my desk, feeling quite exhausted and not wanting to talk about conflict anymore. I found that that was both interesting and somewhat alarming. So then I asked myself, what would you want to talk about if not the topic of conflict? And just before I could even put my thoughts together, the word love came out of my thoughts. And I think that's what this was about. I'm tired of talking about conflict, and instead, I want to talk about love. I can talk about conflict and conflict management and resolution ad nauseum, but I don't think I've ever spent an entire session talking about love. So I found that very interesting. In all these years of study and delving into the topic of love and working with people and teaching, I had never sat down to actually talk about it. Then I realized to talk about love, one has to have done a great deal of inner work to give it real meaning and substance. I mean, after all, the word has become rather meaningless these days. We seem to throw it around so casually. But not too many people really spend years and years studying it, learning about it, and practicing it. Now, I'm not talking about romantic love here, because I'm sure you gather that. I'm referring to love as a state of being or a place we hold in our conscious mind. a state that many important and historical figures have talked about and practiced in their own life. Love, in many spiritual traditions, is the path, destination, and the goal in life. Yet, it seems, given the condition our world is in, not too many people dedicate their life to it these days. We seem to dedicate so much of our life to other things like work, family, children, money, power, prestige, but rarely ever do we see anyone who has willingly dedicated their life to love. Just look around in your own life. How many people do you see around you in your immediate surroundings, like your home, work, school, or community environment, where a person has really dedicated their life to studying and practicing love? Maybe other than some religious figures, you really don't see regular people taking that route in life. But the irony is that so many people long for it, and all the time. We seem to think it's silly to pursue a life based on love, and yet we long for it sometimes 24/7, and even go to great lengths to pursue it, sometimes even to our own detriment. We long for it, yet at the same time, we annihilate it. Isn't that something? I say this because in all the years I've been working with people as a counselor and a coach, the desire for finding a loving, lasting, and sustainable relationship is the number one topic on people's minds. That includes married people too, believe it or not. Everyone longs for loving relationships at home and in the world, and without it, we seem to suffer so much. I think much of the problem in our busy, overly committed, preoccupied life these days is really the lack of real love and connection in our lives, a condition similar to being love-starved or even anemic, like a real deprivation. I do believe this is causing so much of the harm we see in our own life, as well as contributing to many of the problems we face in our communities. Of course, I'm not being unrealistic and sentimental about it and saying that love is all we need in life, or let's abandon all of our responsibilities and obligations and just go on this dreamy pursuit of ultimate love. Although I'm sure that sounds wonderful to many, but that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm really saying is that if we do work more actively and consciously in cultivating more love in our own life, what do you think that would look like? So I like to ask you, what do you think your life would be like if there was more love in it? Or if you were to cultivate more love in your own life, what would be different? You see, the issue here is not that we don't have the capacity for love and loving. It's that we don't spend enough time, if any at all, to think about such questions. It almost seems ridiculous, even frivolous, to sit down and think about this topic, especially as you get older. But that's exactly what's needed in order to remedy some of this love deprivation that we are experiencing in our own life and in the world. Really, the remedy to spend more time thinking and cultivating life is the key here. If you remember, in my last talk, I shared with you how I have many clients who come in for counseling who seem to have everything we think would make us happy in life: money, power, prestige. But they're not happy, primarily because of this love starvation that they struggle with. Only until they cultivate more love in their life do they begin to see some changes occur in their immediate life and in their surrounding. In other words, only when love becomes more realized in one's life does the job, money, friends, and family have more meaning. Until that happens, there seems to be a profound sense of emptiness and loss that no amount of wealth, possessions, or status fulfills. So let's have you take a quick inventory of your own life. How are you getting in your own way of allowing more love to flow in and out of your life? Take a minute to write down 1 or 2 things you can think of quickly. We're going to go on a break, and for the next couple of minutes, I'd like you to take a little time to do this exercise. Okay, so again, think about what's getting in the way of love flowing more freely in and out of your life. So let's take a break, and after we come back, I will delve further into this topic. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Ellie, and today's topic is about building better relationships with people in the community. I just spent the first half of this podcast talking about what seems to be greatly missing in people's life. And before we went on a break, I asked if you guys can write down a couple of things that gets in the way of love flowing in and out of your own life. So when I generally do this exercise with people for the first time, they always come back with answers that are outside of themselves. So for example, they'll say things like, oh, this person that I know of, or this boss that I work with, or this family member, or this particular situation that's getting in the way of love flowing in and out of my life. And I always have to redirect them back to what's getting in the way from the inside, not what's on the outside, right? That's because we really can't change or control things on the outside. I mean, if that was possible, then we would be living a very different life today, right? But because change is an inside job, we have to focus on what gets in our way from the inside. So if you would, then redo this exercise and take inventory of how you're getting in your own way from the inside. What are some of the things that you're doing or not doing? What are some of the habits that you have developed? What are some of the ways that you procrastinate? What are some of the ways that you put yourself down, or you don't have enough confidence in yourself, etc.? Think about some of the things that you do or don't do that gets in the way of you feeling more love flowing in and out of your life. Please write it down for yourself, or you can write it in the chat box right here and I'll see it. Or you can even call it in. I would love to hear your answers. You will be surprised to know how many people will share your answers. These are some, human conditions. It's not that we're so different in some of the things that are going on inside of us. So I always say that holding yourself accountable is actually the first step of getting out of your own way, right? So by acknowledging to yourself and others in this situation, like to me, what it is in you that's getting in the way of accomplishing more love in your life is actually the first step towards making a shift. Becoming accountable to yourself is the first step in becoming responsible for yourself. Okay, so I want to encourage you to continue working on this exercise. This is a very vast topic, and I'll be talking about it from different angles in different episodes. But I want to encourage you to continue to self-assess, about how you may be getting in your own way. In the upcoming sessions, I will continue to delve deeper into this topic. And help you find more clarity in your own life, so that you may be able to develop the skills needed to build better relationships with people at home and in the world. But for today, this concludes our 5th episode. The next session will be a pre-recorded one because I'll be in the process of moving to a new location, but I plan on being with you live for the following episodes in July. In the meantime, feel free to message me with any questions you may have on building better relationships with people, starting from the inside and then working your way out. I'm Dr. Ellie Zarabian, and this is the Transformation Network from Chaos to Connection. Take care, and I'll see you soon.
You have been listening to Dr. Ellie Zarabian, host of From Chaos to Connection. Tune in every second and fourth Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com for more resources and tools to help with healing on your journey of life. You can impact the globe in the most powerful way possible. Whatever your spiritual background and cultural heritage is, you can transform pain and trauma into building community and connection. Join Dr. Ellie in identifying what you need to heal within and in our world. For more information, visit centeronpeace.com. That's centeronpeace.com.